Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Courageous Womanhood podcast, all about awakening the lioness inside. I'm Claire Johnson, your host, and I am so excited that you're here. Now, let's get into the episode. All right, we are back for season 2, episode 2 of the Courageous Womanhood podcast. I am so excited that you're here. Today's going to be kind of an interesting modge podge of different stuff that I've been thinking about and also sparked by different people's questions recently. So the main topic that I'm actually going to talk about has to do with single women traveling alone and doing radical things for God, and just some practicals to accompany this. So there's a young woman, she came through BSC, amazing young woman of God, and she's getting ready to go on a mission trip to a different country, and she's going to be traveling alone, and then while she's there, she'll have some periods of time where she's also going to be alone. She's staying with people, and then she's working with a church there, but she's not always going to be with people. She's going to have a decent amount of time alone. And so I was like, and she was asking just about different self-defense tips and things like that I would recommend. And so I was like, you know what? This is probably something I should do for a podcast, because I feel like a lot of other women, girls have this same question, and honestly some stuff that even if you're not traveling overseas, that are honestly really helpful tips for you even in the US. So here's the thing with traveling. So I've done it a lot. So before Zadok and I got married, I was traveling quite a bit, flying a lot by myself, flying internationally and things like that. And honestly, there's just things as a woman that you need to be aware of when you're doing something like this, because a woman traveling alone is obviously, it could be an easier target, and especially when you go overseas, the culture is so much different there, and honestly, a lot of cultures, like Central America and just different places, they're really, there's not a respect of women and stuff, and so there can be a lot more, catcalling and things like that, which I've experienced. And so you cannot go into this, ignorant and I'm strong, I can handle anything. No, there's actually some practical things that you should try to implement and you should try to do. And so one of my number one things that I talk about all the time, and I actually put it on my Instagram, but I'm going to kind of break it down a little more. So a lot of you guys have probably heard about the young Ukrainian refugee woman that was killed in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was stabbed 3 times in the neck on a public transportation system. And it's actually crazy because that hits really home to me, because I actually lived in that area for 3 years and I rode that public transportation. So I'm I recognize the public transportation and everything, and I traveled that quite a few times, at night and stuff, doing things for work. So the biggest number one tip that I would say to not become a victim, whether US or traveling abroad, is observation and paying attention. This is one thing that is I look everywhere. I go to the store and nobody's paying attention. You're in an airport, nobody's paying attention. We all have our little devices and we are attached to them and not really paying attention to our surroundings. And there's, for some reason, this stigma in our head that if we ignore the problem, it won't happen. If we ignore the creepy guy over there, he won't attack us, when it's actually the reverse of that. Because someone who's looking for a victim is looking for someone who is not confident and someone who is sheepish. And so you don't want to give that off, okay? And so pay attention wherever you are, especially if you're preparing to go overseas, and if you're traveling alone or just going to the store alone, anywhere. And not if you're just by yourself, if you're with a group of friends or things. Honestly, sometimes when I'm in friend groups, I'm the one person who's paying attention and trying to make sure nothing crazy happens to myself, to the people in my group, or to other people that I don't even know. And that's by keeping your head on a swivel. And it's not through fear. Often I think that women can be very prone to fear of something happening, fear of being kidnapped. And I've struggled with all these fears, where I was afraid of kidnap and just different things like that, and abuse and captivity and just all of this different things. And I think it's a real fear, but it's something that we cannot let rule our life, because if we let it rule our life, then we will literally be trapped in a tin box and never get out, and not actually fulfill what God's called us to do. Because God has called us to be courageous women of God that aren't afraid, that stare in the face of danger, and we don't tremble for fear. And obviously there's reason and there's safety and there's listening to the Holy Spirit, but I'll talk more about that. So observation, keeping your head on a swivel, always paying attention to your surroundings, what's in front of you, what's behind you. And because honestly, if someone who's wanting to prey on a female, on someone, if you aren't paying attention, it's very easy for them. But if you're showing that you're paying attention, that you see them, that you see the creepy van over there, don't park next to creepy vans in the parking lot. Don't park at the back of a parking lot. This is common things that you don't do. And you pay attention to where you are, to who's around you, and try not to put your back to something or something you can't see, unless you're going to be continuously looking. I was at Walmart the other day, and when I'm coming out of Walmart, I'm literally still looking behind me, seeing if I see anything, make sure nobody's following me. And it's not out of a fear. I'm not afraid. I'm not running to my car in fear, but I'm just observing, because honestly, they notice someone who's observant and paying attention and not just sitting there or walking on their phone. And so many people do it. They're just on their phone, walking the store. It could be you. That girl in the Ukrainian girl, it could have been you, but it wasn't. And so how do we keep this from happening again? And I'm not dissing her at all. That guy was absolutely evil. The justice system is very messed up. He shouldn't have even been on the streets. But I'm just saying, unfortunately, we can't fully change society, so we need to do whatever we can proactively to keep it from happening to us and to those around us. Number one, keep your head on a swivel, where you're just turning your head, keeping track of your surroundings, and then you can spot things that are a little weird. Oh, I probably shouldn't go over there because, I'm spotting this weird person, or I'm just feeling like this is off, And so that's the thing I do. And if you're on your phone, or if you have to take a phone call, for example, if I were to take a phone call, someone calls me, I'm in the parking lot, I'm in a store, pick up my phone, and I'm going to keep my head still on a swivel. I want them to know that this device right here is not my main focus, but that I am listening, I'm talking on the phone, but I'm still taking in my surroundings. I'm not checking out whatsoever. And that's the problem, is a lot of people can check out, and it's something you just have to train yourself to do. And even with myself, sometimes I'm okay, Claire, you need to make sure you're 100% checked in here, because sometimes it's easy to just go through the motions. You get comfortable with the place. And so it's just something I've practiced to make sure I'm always being hyper aware of my surroundings. And I even want to get better at it, to where I can remember certain features of different people. But even since I was little, I'd point out to my mom, oh, did you notice that guy with this jacket and da 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 da, and how he's acting? And so I think it's just a thing you really need to practice. And if you're a mom, with your children, you don't want to instill fear in them, but also you want them to learn to be observant of their surroundings, what's going on around them, because we live in a fallen world. And not everyone has your best intentions in mind, and that's the reality. And that's why I'm talking about this, because I feel like it's a topic we don't always want to address. Because also the reality is, as a woman, you are not stronger than a man. Obviously, there's some men who don't seem very strong. But the reality is, of a woman, they have leverage over you, they often have height over you, they have weight over you, and just different things. We are not as strong as men. And I am a female that is very, I'm fit, I work out, and I've gone through honcho poncho stage in my teenagehood, thinking I'm, very tough and strong, and who would mess with me? But the reality is you're still a woman, and there's still that factor. So you have to realize that you are not invincible, and that it can happen to you. And I think that's the thing that we just have to face with reality, is that also God made you beautiful. He made me beautiful, and we shouldn't be ashamed of that. I've often seen women be ashamed of their beauty because they're afraid of guys looking or things happening. And there's a difference between embracing the beauty that God's given you and doing your hair and doing your makeup and dressing nicely without showing things off. And so we don't need to dress frumpy in order to be like, oh, they won't notice me. The truth is like, that's such a lie of the devil to keep women from actually becoming and expressing the beauty that God's given them. Like, God gave us as women the ability to show beauty and like true beauty that God made. And so it's a beautiful thing, and it's not something to hide, but it's something we also need to be smart with, especially when you're going out by yourself, to just be very like, read the situation. This is my thing. It's like, read the situation. And with going overseas, like my next thing I have when you're traveling is to blend in and not stick out, especially if you're overseas. This is even more of a thing when you're overseas, is to blend into where you're at. So if you're traveling to a different country, you want to kind of blend into the type of clothes that they're wearing. You don't want to wear a bunch of makeup. You don't want to do your hair all crazy or make yourself look extra beautiful. And it's not out of a shame thing. This is more of a thing with like overseas, is you already are kind of going to stick out. Like for me, especially like with my blonde hair, in most countries, I stick out extremely, just due to my hair color. And the thing is that you just need to be aware of that, of making yourself not stick out and making yourself blend in as much as possible, because then if you're in a crowd of people and stuff, you're not going to be that one person who sticks out. The goal is not to be the one person that catches an eye and sticks out because you're dressed different, you're dressed in crazy neon clothes or something. Just try to like blend in as much as possible while still not being ashamed of who you are, if that makes sense. But in certain countries, like obviously if I was in a Muslim country, I'm not going to walk around in my tank top that I'm wearing today. I'm going to actually cover myself accordingly to the customs and that culture in order to not stand out as a significant target. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. It's different in the US. Obviously, if I'm going out at night by myself, I'm gonna, not be all dolled up or something by myself. It's just kind of dependent on the area where you're at, to be honest. I go at night, like whether I go day or night, I kind of wear the same thing in my area. But if I'm going into like a big city or like different things, like I don't want to look homeless if everyone's looking nice, if that makes sense. So it's like, you just want to kind of read your scenario, read your surrounding. Don't try to stick out. Try to just like blend in. But in the US, I think it's just like a situational dependent thing, honestly, because everyone around here is dressed so different and looks so different. There's such like a big dichotomy of people. And I'm American, so it's a lot different than me being in a different country, in an Asian country, Central America, and like it's very easy for me to stick out. So I just need to do my best to blend in. So like when I was in like Central America, I would have my hair in a tight bun with a baseball cap with not like a bunch of hairs peeking out, and I wore sunglasses most of the time to cover my blue eyes. So that just kind of made me a little bit more blend in to where, like, because obviously the first thing a lot of people see is like your head and your face and your hair, and so I just tried to like kind of blend that in, if that makes sense. So then my other thing is just a practical is of stuff you can carry with you. So there's so many things that you can carry with you. One thing, especially if you're traveling overseas, if you're going anywhere, and I think I've talked about this on here before, but I'm going to re-emphasize it, is a SOCP bench-made dagger. It's a small little dagger that is very, very concealable. And I like to carry this everywhere I go. Carried it in Thailand, carried it in Burma, with me everywhere I went, because it's a thin little dagger. And this is not for you in a self-defense situation if someone comes up for you to pull out your knife and be like, you can't get me. It's more if you are attacked, and then you can slyly pull it out without them noticing and use it. Like if someone attacks you on top of you, you can pull out and stab them in the side or something like that. It's to where you have something that's concealable. And I'm not going to go into all the like knife stuff. Like obviously no one wants to get into a knife fight, but carrying stuff on you, pepper spray. I like pepper spray gel as well. I think that's a little better. But obviously if you're flying overseas, you can't really carry pepper spray on the plane, but you can put a knife in your check bag. But make sure you check the regulations of whatever country you're going to, because some countries, which is more in Europe, but different countries have different regulations for different knives and lengths and blade length. So you want to make sure that you don't end up getting pulled in customs like me and Zadok have, because of your knife that you didn't realize was illegal or edgy there. One thing I've also carried is I have my thermos water bottle, and these are so useful because of the fact they're never assumed as a weapon, but you can carry them and you can hit someone, bonk someone with this. Very awesome. Carry it by the handle, cha, swing. Very, very smart thing. A lot of ladies have water bottles, but the thermos is so much better than like a Nalgene. This thing is heavy duty. I would not want to get whacked in the head with this. I'm not going to do like a full everything you should carry for self-defense, but there's so many different things, like chopsticks, just different things. But I definitely recommend always having with you like a minimum a knife, because you can take this overseas and get used to always carrying it. Just be like, I'm going overseas, I'm going to get a knife, but actually carry it with you when you're in the US, wherever you are. And yeah, that's what I do, because obviously you can't carry a firearm and take that overseas. Although if you live in the US, I also was putting this, I said it on Instagram and stuff, but you as women, like, your safety is your priority and your responsibility, because so often we depend on other people for our protection, and as women we can really depend on men, which men should be protecting women. But as we saw in the video of the Ukrainian woman, like, there was men on that train and no one stepped in to help her. And obviously when I'm in town with Zadok or something, I am a lot more relaxed, a lot more chill. Like, I know he's got my back, but I'm not always with him. And I go out by myself, and I go into the women's bathroom by myself. And I go out places with other people. I've taken my nieces out to town, and the protection of myself and those with me is my responsibility, and I need to take it as my responsibility and not just depend on someone else to do it for me. And like, it really made me think of that when I saw the video of the Ukrainian woman, because literally no one helped. And I think often we think someone will help, and unfortunately we live in a very self-preservation society where everyone is out to protect themselves. And it's honestly really sad. It's really unfortunate, but we as believers cannot be that way. We have the hope of eternal life. Obviously, I'm not going to try to purposely put myself in harm's way, but at the same time, like, life, every single life is sacred, and we go against abortion and we go against all this, but at the same time, are we willing to protect other innocent people that are in the store with us? And because every life is sacred to God, and we don't know if they would be going to hell. And so it's very important for us to practice self-defense, to take classes, to do firearms training, to do self-defense training, to do knife training, in order to be better equipped for the call of God on our life. Because I don't want the call of God thwarted on my life because of my lack of preparedness and self-defense. And if I'm going overseas, like, I don't want to die unless I like have to die. Like, if that makes sense. Like, if I can stop a situation from happening, I want to stop that situation from happening. And so, yeah, those are some other practicals. Okay, another one is, do not, especially overseas, but this is even in the States, do not go out at night by yourself, and especially overseas. As soon as it gets dark, don't go out in the early morning in the dark. Don't go out late at night in the dark. Like, once after close to sunset, like, pack up and go home. Do not go out by yourself at night, especially overseas, because of heavy trafficking and just different things. Like, at night, do not go out at night. A lot of crimes and different things like that, abductions, theft, different things, crazy bad stuff happens after sunset at night. So if you're a woman traveling alone, don't go out at night. Don't go out on the streets. Don't go on a little walk. Even if you're going on a little prayer walk, do not go out at night. It is too risky. Don't risk it. It is, not a good idea. Not a good idea. I went running a few times in Thailand when we were on a visa run, and I would go with Zadok. I'd have him riding on a bike with me. Even though I was in like a pretty safe kind of neighborhood, I'm still not going to go out at night. And even in the States, I don't go out at night. If I'm running at night or something, I'm running on my driveway. But if I'm going further than that, I'm going with Zadok. Even though I live in a pretty safe area, it's just not worth it. It's the things that happen at night, the people that come out at night, drugs, alcohol, things like that. It's just not worth it. So that's my thing, is don't go out at night. Don't risk it. Make sure you're paying attention to the time, to not put yourself out at night. Because if you're, just don't put yourself in that situation. That's all I gotta say. I feel like this is pretty clear, clean cut and dry. Don't go out at night. Another thing is trust your gut. Like, God has given women especially there is like a holy fear, a spirit-led intuition. I think often women can misuse it for their own purposes or to allow fear to dictate their life. There's a difference. But God he often gives us this sense of like someone's off, something's off. And honestly, just trust that. It's better to be safe than sorry. If you feel something's off, if you're like, I don't know if I should go there tonight, even though I was planning, or that person seems a little off. Because every time pretty much that I felt someone's off, but everyone's saying, oh no, they're perfectly fine. Years later, I find out down the road that they actually were a really bad person, and they're abusing different people, but their background checked out fine. And like, even just like in the store, if I'm like, there's a guy that seems off, I'm like, yeah, he's off. Like, I'm gonna, be careful. I'm gonna, try to stay away from this guy. But often God gives you a sense about people. If you feel creeped out, it's probably creepy. And don't play the edge, don't play the line. Just trust your gut, especially when you're out alone as a woman by yourself and overseas. Trust your gut. Don't be afraid, but trust the Lord and just ask the Holy Spirit for guidance. Like, God knows. And so ask the Lord for protection, ask him for wisdom. Like, should I go here? Should I not go here? And honestly, like, if you're going somewhere, like, just like, and one thing I was just thinking about with like paying attention to your surroundings is, if you're a woman walking alone, like, pay attention especially to behind you in case people are following you. You don't want to lead people directly to where you live and stuff like that. You want to take different routes. One thing I was also thinking with overseas, a woman traveling by herself, there's different like tracking apps and things like that, to where like you can share your location with someone. So it might be a smart idea to whoever you're staying with, or people that are kind of like your emergency contacts, so that they always have your location, especially if you're going out by yourself. It would just be a smart idea to have, especially in a different country where you don't know a bunch of people, and it's not like you can just go walk up to someone and be like, I have an emergency, can I use your phone, can I call this person, blah blah blah. I think it's really good for people to have a way to know your location and things like that, and have an emergency contact list and things like that. So I think that's really important. But yeah, definitely trust your gut. Like, God has given us an ability, a safety meter. And so just trust your gut, but also don't be afraid. And with that, a lot of times with creepy people or something, we tend to shy away and make sure, don't make eye contact, because then they'll, take it as a cue. Like, no, look them in the eye. And I heard this tip, and if there's a creepy person that feels like they're staring you down, don't shy away. Look them in the eye, and look them in the eye as long as it takes you to say in your head, I see you. And then look away. Because this lets them know that, hey, like, I see you, what you're doing, like, I'm not playing this game, I'm not ignorant. And this is another big tactic that can actually help, because you having that confidence to look them in the eye. They're not wanting to, they want compliant girls, women. They don't like someone who's gonna take the effort and gonna have the confidence to look someone in the eye that's creepy. Be like, hey, I see you. Is a big, like, that's gonna really ward off a lot, if that makes sense. So yeah, don't be afraid. Do whatever God tells you to do. And I think, like, God is our protector at the end of the day. But we also need to train. We need to do practical things. And we need to realize that it is our responsibility for our self-protection, along with, obviously, God's our protector. But we can't just walk around like, oh yeah, the Lord's my protector, but I'm going to put myself in harm's way, and I'm going to walk out at night, and I'm just not going to pay attention because God will protect me. Like, that's really not a good idea. Okay, now I want to move on to some other topics that have really been on my heart the past week. But first, I really wanted to start doing where if you guys send in any questions that are just like even really, really random, I would love to answer them in the first part of the podcast. Just like random questions. They don't even have to be spiritual, just like even recommendations, like, hey, what do you recommend for this, gear, anything, just random questions, just like this one gal that reached out to me about self-defense stuff, and I was like, hey, I won't mention your name or anything, but I would love to just kind of answer your question on the podcast. I'm gonna have a phone call with her too about more specifics, but I was like, this would be awesome to kind of start doing. Okay, so the thing that's really been on my heart recently that I've been thinking about is your friend group. Zadok and I were talking about how we are 10% of the top 10 people that we hang out with. Meaning that those you surround yourself by, it is inevitable that you will not begin to have the habits and the behaviors that they have. Like, you will be influenced. Influence is inevitable. And so it's funny because it's like, so this is like a worldly statistic and everything, but in the Bible it says, that bad company ruins good character. And so when I really realized this years ago, you end up having to kind of cut your friend group down, because I had to be like, okay, are the top 10 people that I'm surrounding myself by, the influences that I'm listening to, are these actually working towards who I want to become, who I want to be like, what do I want to look like when I'm 10 years down the road, the habits that these people have, the character that they have, the things they're doing in their life, do I want to be like them? And I think the thing is, I had to be like, do I want to be like them? And obviously not everyone is perfect, but are there some big, amazing quality areas that I want to be like them? And honestly, my friend group isn't even 10 people. Because of that. Like, I know a lot of people, but there's a very limited amount of people that I actually really invest a lot of time in the sense that we are friends, in the sense that they influence me. And whether you realize it or not, though, a lot of times we can go into groups and we think, well, I'm going there to influence them. But if you're hanging out with a group of people that you do not want to be like, their behavior, their language, their habits, whether you realize it or not, they are going to begin to rub off on you. That's one reason, like, I cut out secular music. Like, if I ever hear secular music now, I'm like, oh, like, because I used to listen to country music and stuff all the time. If I even play a song, I'm like, oh, like, that's not good. And it's like the deeper conviction of God upon my life to where, like, I can't listen to secular music and like movies and different things, because I'm like, oh, like, that begins to get into your head and shape your thought life, your thinking patterns, what you're watching on social media, what you're listening to, what books you're reading. Like, I cut out completely when I was like, I don't know, teenager, all romance novels, anything like that, because I was like, it's building a false view in my head, whether I realize it or not, it's influencing me. And I would even consider that one of the top 10 people, because it was absorbing a lot of my time. What you're listening to, what you're watching, what you're reading, the people that you hang out with, that's what influences you. Like, who do you want to be like? What do you want to become? While at the same time, we as people are not created to just isolate ourselves and just me and Jesus, because I've seen a lot of this mentality of like, well, I don't want to be like them. And there's a scripture about, the Pharisee or whatever, religious person that went up on a hill to pray and then saw another person who was just repenting for their sins and who had really come to God, and they're like, oh, well, I'm happy I'm not like them. And I think a lot of Christians can get in this mentality, well, I'm glad I'm not like them. And so then we just isolate ourselves to ourselves, and or a little group that makes us feel good about ourselves. And that's not the gospel. So I'm not saying that don't ever be around people that aren't like you, but you need to be cautious of those that you spend a lot of quality time with, and that you allow inner parts of your heart and the precious things of your heart, because that can negatively or positively impact the calling of God upon your life, and you be able to fulfill what God's called you to do. Because do they line up? Are their values lining up with who you want to become, the call of God on your life, who you want to become as a person, as a woman of God? I know there's guys who sometimes list that as a man of God, and honestly, that kind of cuts down a lot of your circle, because is that going to hinder you or slow you down? Because a lot of friend groups, like, it can pull you down from your true calling of who you're called to be. Like, you're still who you are, but you're being drugged down, you're being slowed down from making that progress towards who you're supposed to be. And honestly, is the conversation with the people that you're hanging out with, is it glorifying God? And are you actually iron sharpens iron? And it is unfortunately very hard to find super quality friends. But the people that I do hang out with that influence my life are those who champion who I am and I champion who they are. Whether we do all things the same, we agree on the same concepts, and we are in radical pursuit of the Lord, even though we're not doing the exact identical things in life. Although I do still hang out with people that aren't like me, and that they need a lot of growth, but they don't have that place of influence. I take it in very pieces, and it's in my mind, I shift to a different perspective and a different concept and a different interaction to where I'm their ministry. And I'm pouring into them, whether they realize it or not. I'm not telling them, hey, you're my ministry. But they're not one of those top people that I surround myself by that influence me. And whether you realize it or not, too, we often will pick up the negative habits of people, because when we go and we're like, well, I'm just going to influence them. And even people I've heard, like, they get into a dating relationship for someone that they can make them to be, or like, oh, well, all, like, you know, girls end up liking a guy, but he's not a Christian, but then she'll lead him to God, you know, and that never works. Okay, guys, that does not work. You are often influenced by the negative. So if you're listening to secular music, if you're listening to that, and if you've been in, like, when I've been in very secular work environments and everyone's like cussing every other word, it starts to get into your head, and I didn't like it at all, but it's not that I was ever saying it, but it's like this pattern of how people are speaking. It gets in your mind. If you're around people that are negative, if you're around people that are gossiping, like, that gets into your head. And so one thing I've really, really been thinking about is the power of who you surround yourself by to who you want to become in the trajectory of your life. And so I just want to tell you, like, set standards in your life of what you're not going to tolerate. And people may tell you you're too much or your standards are too high, but the calling of God on your life is too important to be thwarted by being sidestepped and distracted or just tamed down from what God has called you to be as a person. And so you have to shift into ministry, because Zadok and I talk to people all the time. Like, we're in ministry, we're in full-time ministry, so you're not around people you fully agree with all the time, and you're around people that are unbelievers, and we're sharing the gospel. And I think people, like, I saw a lot in, like, growing up in the homeschool movement, so this stigma and this fear that, oh, they're going to rub off on me, so we got to, like, shelter ourselves and never be around the world, because then we're going to become influenced. And there's a healthy way to do it. Like, don't just go out into the world and be like, I'm going to influence them. But you have to go out in ministry, share the gospel on the streets, go to places that, you know, there's people that have different callings to go to different places. There's people who go into jail ministry. I know people who go into like clubs and they share the gospel, and they're not being influenced by it. They're going in as a light. But those aren't the top 10 people that they hang out with. That's not their inner circle. That is their ministry. So there is a big difference, and we should not shy away from the world because we don't want to become like them. We need to bring the light to the world, because light eradicates darkness. If you bring a candle into a dark room, you see the light, and the light shines bright and clears all those dark spaces. And that's who we're called to be, is the light of the world, a city set on a hill that cannot be hidden. That's who we're called to be. And so, yeah, your inner circle, be really careful about who you bring in there, because those are the ones that are going to shape who you become. Is like who you surround yourself by. You will pick up those habits. But go out into the world and share the gospel and be a radical light, because that is who we are called to be, and that is what we are called to do. And the last thing that I was really thinking about today, so I was on a run and I was listening to a leadership podcast that had a lot of things that I kind of already knew, but it was just like, oh, it's so good, because whether you're leading an organization or something, no matter where you are a leader. A leader of your family. Like, even if you're a mom, like, there is still leadership over your children, even though your husband is the head of the house. And in your friend groups, like, everywhere you go, You have the ability to lead. And so I just was like thinking about it, and he was saying how an unhealthy leader, when they're stressed, when they're angry, and they allow their emotions to rule, they bring an entire environment down. But a healthy leader doesn't allow their emotions to change the environment, like in a negative sense. And so that's who we're called to be as believers, is to be those who don't allow our emotions to dictate our life, and to be those people when hard times come, when it's difficult, to where we aren't there grumbling and complaining and bringing everywhere we go down, but we are inspiring and motivating people despite our lack of feeling encouraged. Like, honestly, it's been a really interesting, tough season, just like of transition and being back here in the US and things like that. And I don't think a lot of people would know it necessarily, because not going into the environment being like, oh yeah, it's just been like so hard, like that doesn't matter. Like, my emotions in that sense, they do not matter. Like, obviously I need to like deal with what's going on and bring it to God, but I'm not bringing that into an environment, because I am created to motivate and inspire and encourage people to serve God radically wherever they go. And often there's too many depressed missionaries, and that's not a real missionary, because the gospel is inspiring and motivating and uplifting and full of life. And it's not easy, but it's the best, most fulfilling life you will ever live. And I was also, one of the things he was talking about is like, you can't lead others unless you lead yourself. And that's like such a big thing, is like, how are you leading yourself, and how are you disciplining yourself and reaching goals? Because honestly, one thing I was thinking about the other day is there's never feels like there's a perfect time to do anything. Like right now I'm training for a half marathon next month, and I've been doing this since coming back to Burma. I had emergency wisdom teeth surgery, different things that have kind of set me back a little. But I was like, if I don't do it today, how will I do it tomorrow? And there's I challenge you to just be self-motivated and push yourself into uncomfortable situations to continue to grow yourself, because I want to continue to motivate and inspire people. But how can I go and motivate and inspire them if I'm sitting on the couch like a couch potato? Like, I have to keep being radical in different areas of my life, radical about the gospel. I need to be hardcore and radical in all different areas, and just be all in to be the best version, healthiest version of me that I can be, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And young woman, I just want to encourage you to just go all in your life, in every area of your life, because each area of your life spills into all the areas of life. So just go all in, be radical, be crazy for Jesus, and just do crazy things. Be a courageous, radical woman of God. And honestly, even physically, like, I'm super passionate about this right now, because often so people are held back because they're not ready. And I never want to be unable to do what God's called me to do because I have not prepared myself. And so be the best version spiritually, physically, and emotionally that you can be, so you can be prepared for the battle ahead, for the assignment ahead of what God has called you to do. Whether you're married, you're single, or whatever stage of life you are in, you need to be ready. And be ready for what God has upon your life. And as a married woman, I got to be ready to do what God's coming to do, and I got to be ready to champion my husband and go where God is telling me to go. Because there's some times where it's like God's radically called him into some things, and I want to be able to be the support system he needs and never the drag in his life. And if you're a single woman, you need to be prepared and ready to be that woman of God that a man needs someday. And so you need to prepare yourself now, because if not, you'll be a drag on his life. You'll be a drag on his mission. And we are called to live on mission, and a man was never called to just sit and not live on mission for God, because that's where he reaches his greatest fulfillment and life and fullness of life, is when he lives on mission, when you live on mission. And so even me training and running is not so I can just run a half marathon, it's so I can be prepared and on mission for what God's called me to do. And so I'm just really just go all in. Like, why not? What's holding you back? Don't stop. There's never going to be a perfect cookie cutter perfect time to do things. And like, honestly, I'm like, oh, well, if it was in a better season, it'd be a lot easier for me to set aside that time. Like, yeah, there would be other times that are better, but guess what? Like, the gospel doesn't stop for no one. The gospel continues to need to be spread, and like, what God has me doing and what God wants me to do, like, I can't just take a year off and kumbaya to like have a perfect time to do certain things. Like, no, like doing this podcast, yeah, I'm doing it in my car. right now because I don't have a perfect setup. I'm doing a lot of things that's like, you know what? It's not the most convenient time. It's not the most convenient place. But that's the thing that keeps people back, is because they wait for the perfect moment. But guess what? You just need to go when God says go. And also, I want to encourage you, there is always a go in the gospel. There's never, like, it says go therefore. So wherever you are, whoever you are, you need to go, and you're commanded to share the gospel, to preach the word of God, and to shine as bright as like a lighthouse, as a city set on a hill. And so I hope you guys feel inspired. I hope you guys feel motivated. And also, if you want to sign up for the Courageous Womanhood podcast, it's going to be so awesome. I'm so excited for it. I only have like less than 2 weeks till sign up cuts off. I think it's exactly 2 weeks. So you got to get your tickets now, because I literally cannot receive any applications after that because of the venue that I'm working with. They need to cut off, as in 2 weeks they have to have the number, and I can't add any more people. So sign up now before it's too late. We have slots available, and I'm super excited for what God's going to do. Excited to meet you in person if you're coming, and just become the women of God that we are called to be. So love you guys. So excited for what God's going to do in your life. And so God has so much in store for you. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I'll see you next time. And that concludes this episode of the Courageous Womanhood podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like more information, feel free to go to www.undauntedmissions.org/podcast. We'll see you next time.